Well, this is an important cup of tea. A whole lot of y'all have reached out to me today about the news that's spreading that people that receive SNAP benefits will not receive their benefits starting November 1st. SNAP benefits, EBT, that is food stamps. And yes, a letter was sent to states to tell them to withhold releasing funds to recipients, dear. And in that letter, they were talking about the shutdown. But that's not what's going on. No, baby, I've got the entire cup of tea. So what you may not know is that back in May, the current regime sent letters all across the US of A to the SNAP departments, to the EBT departments, requesting data on EBT recipients, those who receive food stamp benefits, going all the way back, this is important, all the way back to 2020. Now, what was going on in the United States in 2020? The flu-pocalypse. And because of the flu-pocalypse, people in the United States were receiving SNAP benefits that had never received SNAP benefits before under emergency SNAP benefits. Millions of Americans who had never received SNAP benefits before were receiving them because we were in a national emergency because of the flu-pocalypse. Just like people who had never before qualified for unemployment because they were 1099 employees were receiving unemployment benefits because we were in a crisis here. Okay. So it's safe to say that a whole lot of the people who started freshly and newly receiving benefits in 2020 are no longer receiving those benefits anymore because that emergency is over. Right? Right. Now, blue states refute 27 states turned over that data. Red states, they turned over that data to the federal government about who in their state receives these SNAP benefits. And this isn't regular data. This is all your personal information. You see, we already give data to the federal government about SNAP benefits, not the names of the people who receive it or their home addresses or their social security numbers or all that other stuff that you put on those applications. Just data about how many people are receiving the benefits and what the amounts are. That's normal. But asking for all this personal data is not normal. And blue states came out to say, nope, we're not sending you this data because this is just another play by this regime to collect data on Americans for surveillance for immigration operations. And they refused to send in that private data to the current regime. And it pissed off the current regime, dear. It did. It pissed them off because legally, these states don't have to turn over that data. They don't have to. Nope, they don't have to. And it's pissed off the current administration. So in a play to try to force Democratic states to hand over your private information, they're threatening to withhold benefits. And it's an empty threat because the federal government doesn't have the authority to come into your state and force EBT to withhold your benefits. However, alarm bells should be going off for you today if you are living in a red state, because these 27 red states complied right away in May and handed over that data to the regime. So there's no reason to believe that those red states wouldn't once again comply with the administration and withhold those benefits. Now, if you live in a red state, your red state actually has the right to deny this request legally and still issue you your EBT benefits, dear. They don't have the right to stop it in any kind of way. We're going to have to see how this plays out today. But it's making the current regime look very, very guilty, honey. That they're just wanting to collect data, just like blue states said, for their little immigration and surveillance plays. And imagine the amount of data on Americans they would receive through EBT going all the way back to 2020. They would receive data and personal private information on American citizens who no longer even receive these benefits, dear. It would be a huge data haul. wouldn't it? But either way, from everything that I can find today, they legally cannot stop you from receiving your benefits. They can't claim it's a shutdown, because that wouldn't cause you to not receive your benefits, dear. They can't claim anything, really, at all, as a legal reason to keep people from receiving their benefits. They can't say that it's, they're trying to sort out fraud and waste either. That's not an excuse for withholding funds from people who are not participating in fraud and waste, dear. Okay? So I hope that helps you out a little bit today if you're in fear in some kind of way. I still think you should keep your eye on this if you're living in a red state to see if they're going to comply. And this is going to affect you too, MAGA. If your red state decides to comply full on with the current regime, you're not going to get your benefits, baby. Because, whether you want to believe this or not, Red Hat, with your food stamps and all of that, this was never about sorting out fraud and waste, honey. This was about changing the federal government to no longer support the people who support the federal government. This was about making sure that your taxpayer money never, ever went to you, honey. But yes, that's the tea right there. They've been trying to do this since May of this year. They want the data on Americans going all the way back to 2020, which would include millions of Americans who no longer even receive these benefits. They don't need your personal information to track the data of fraud and waste and abuse within the SNAP programs. They don't need your personal data for that. They already have enough data to see if there's any fraud or waste and abuse. All of this, all of it is bullshit. Every bit of it is bullshit. Okay. All right. I hope that helps.